Americans must get to work and be willing to confront the symptoms of this violence. The first problem we need to address is the hate-filled language dominating our politics and public discourse. As Americans, we cherish our freedom of speech, but just because we can say something doesn't mean that we should. I believe Americans in the public arena must tone down their rhetoric, exercise restraint, and treat those with different viewpoints with respect, because we've got to work our way through some difficult conversations. This starts at the top, but all of us in public life need to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, will we speak words that unite our country or divide it? We desperately need to talk about problems like prejudice, mental illness, and gun violence. But more importantly, we need to act. For starters, we need a stronger public response to the hate speech on social media that demonizes others, reinforces prejudice, and very likely incites some individuals to violence. We all have a responsibility to speak up and condemn hate speech when we see it. Moreover, we have a responsibility to let law enforcement know if we think a crime is about to be committed. We also need to do more to treat mental illness in this country. Of course, not everyone who commits a crime is mentally ill, and few Americans with mental health issues ever commit a violent act. Nevertheless, in several deadly hate crimes over the last decades, the shooters suffered from mental illness. This shouldn't be surprising. Mental health has historically been neglected and underfunded. This is the richest country in the world. Surely we can afford to provide mental health care to our neighbors who need it. Put another way, can we afford not to? And finally, we need to come together to reduce gun violence that's ripping our country apart. You would think that after all the tragedies in Connecticut, Florida, Colorado, Nevada, and now here in Pittsburgh, that Congress would finally come together to pass common sense gun safety legislation. The sad reality is this Congress has done nothing to address gun violence in this country. Not a single one of the many bills introduced to combat gun violence has been allowed to come to the floor for a vote by the Republican leadership. This has to change. Americans have a right to know where their member of Congress stands on these important issues. Congress has to act. To stand by and do nothing as innocents are murdered in our communities seems like a crime in its own right. We owe it to those we have lost to make our communities safer, healthier, and more civil. Democrats in Congress are ready to work and, more importantly, vote on these issues. We welcome the opportunity to work with our Republican colleagues to enact bipartisan legislation to reduce hate crimes, gun violence, and mental illness in this country. That would be the best way to honor the lives lost in Pittsburgh this week. Thank you, and God bless our country.